I am the last of my kind. You, perhaps, are the last of yours. This is actually the second time I've been the last of my kind. There's something romantic about it. The last one to turn out the lights on an entire world. The responsibility of being the last man out. The last bastion of a legacy. Teaches wisdom in regard to the worth of work. That all is vanity. And yet that there is a good life under the sun. What am I talking about? Well, I did a YouTube short recently in which I mentioned that I was reading books at Canon. So I've been doing quite a bit of that recently. Not sure how long I will do it for, but enough that I could accurately describe myself, along with many other accurate descriptions of me, as an audiobook reader. But I don't think there's going to be another generation of audiobook readers, even as audiobooks and audio presentations of art become more prevalent, even more prevalent. Of course, artificial intelligence is coming. And of course, you know, this deep fake stuff had been coming for a long time that included voices, but everyone has seen it. The leaps, the bounds forward taken recently. I know several publishers who are already messing with AI. And just, you know, if you are an enjoyer of audiobooks, let me assure you, it really is not going to be long at all. The product is not going to suffer. You are going to receive great readings, particularly because they're based on real voices, right? The AI imitates actual readers. There could be a Joffrey AI out there reading audiobooks for thy enrichment and enjoyment. So, I think I'm in that last generation of audiobook readers. Not of performers, right? And audiobook reading is a performance of sorts. Certain kinds of audiobooks are better done by actors, or even whole teams of actors, and done as a dramatic production. Some people even think of audio versions of dramatic productions the way they would have thought of them as a radio show in the past. They think of them as audiobooks now. And perhaps we'll think of them as podcasts in the future. Right, so a student of mine recently said that they had listened to an audiobook of a play, but it wasn't an audiobook of the play, it was a performance of the play by various actors in audio. So, of course, performers will still be out there, right? But basically thinking of an audiobook as, you know, a presentation of a text. I present you with this codex. Here's a book. You can read it whenever you like. Well, here's a book in audio file. Remember that reading in your mind hasn't always been the way people have done it. Even when after codexes were invented, people still thought of the letters as transmitting actual sounds. Because you know what? They actually do. Anyway, last of my kind. This is not the first time, as I alluded to at the beginning of the video, I've been the last of my kind. You will never guess. Some of you already know, so that doesn't count, of course. But you will never guess what other last of my kind I was. This is in the late 90s. I was the last example of this at a certain workplace. I'm sure others came after me in other places, but at least in this workplace, there were no more like me after. And shortly after that, all done. The first place I lived when I left my parents, and I was like 4 blocks from my parents, was a funeral home. So at age 18, I moved into a funeral home. I lived upstairs above like the main parlor showroom area. Okay, so it was a nice funeral home. Enormous parking lot with various warehousey, sheddy structures in the back where the embalming, etc. was done. But then the house where you would be received, etc., right? The actual funeral home. I lived up in an attic sort of thing. I had a little kitchenette and a dining room and a bedroom. And then below was, just the reception area, etc. If there was a funeral coming up, then everything would be ready in there, good to go. But normally the house was completely empty. I actually didn't get paid any cash money for my job. I'll let you start to imagine what my job might have been. But I received free room, not board, but free room. So I had an apartment in exchange for being home every night. Being home every night. As I recall, I think I might have had one night off, like maybe Sunday nights. I don't remember. I only did it for maybe half a year. I took over for someone at the Baptist Student Union. Say, I do this and I'm leaving. They're looking for someone. So I went and I took over. But they were actually, I think, kind of ready to be done. I was the last one. I would take phone calls. Someone dies at 2 o'clock in the morning. They call the funeral home. They know what to do. They call the funeral home. I would pick up. And it was my job to answer the phone, to take down certain pieces of information, and then get in touch with the appropriate funeral director. Boom, done. And the funeral directors had pagers. This is late 90s. Pagers were already unfashionable tech. But cell phones were not universal yet. So I was that last bastion of formality, inaccessibility at all times. I mean, one wants one's funeral director when one needs one's funeral director, just as one wants one's doctor. But I look at the lives of men like that and I think, man, to be always on call, how brutal. In a way, I think my calling, my work at the time was quite noble. Pretty rough to always be on call. I think that work was a big reason I resisted getting a cell phone for a long time. I had a corporate job that required that I get a cell phone. In 2005, I didn't get a cell phone until 2005. And life has never been the same. Goodness. Anyway, I've enjoyed thinking about the 2 times, well, the 1 time, and I'm anticipating this coming time, of turning out the lights on a world. I would love to hear in the comments if you've turned out the lights on any worlds, been one of the last ones out, or if you see any of that coming. All right, the peace of Christ be upon you.
What day is it today? Remind me.
It's Sunday, Mr. Pinch.
Sunday. And what do we do on a Sunday morning, wherever we happen to be? We go to church, you bloody heathen!